All right, so this is officially the start of Unit 5. So this unit definitely has a lot of information in it. As you can see, it says Unit 5, 1945 to 1980. That's a lot of years to be covering in one unit. But this unit is not necessarily just the things that happen in those years. It is a little more thematic. So we'll be covering time where we've already talked about some things that have happened. We're just going to be talking about different things happening during those years. So this unit is all about social movements. So we'll be talking about the civil rights movement, the second wave of feminism, counterculture, the environmental movement, the student protest movement, 1950s conformity. So it's all about sort of how our culture is going to be changing through 1945 to 1980. So right after World War I, we're going to be, World War II, we're going to be making that shift back from a wartime economy to a peacetime economy. So a lot of people who had war industry jobs are going to lose them because we don't need those war industries anymore. So we will see the economy take a little bit of a dip, but it's a natural dip, and it's nothing that sort of signals trouble ahead or anything like that. But on top of that, we were having a lot of soldiers coming home and return and looking for new jobs, making that transition from soldier to civilian. And so in an effort to sort of help out the economy and ease that transition, Congress is going to pass something called the GI Bill, or the GI Bill of Rights. And basically what it does is it says all the things that a veteran is entitled to, and it provides money for veterans to do different things like scholarship money for school, unemployment pay for out-of-work veterans. It also encourages loans with very low interest rates so that veterans can buy homes, businesses, land for farms, whatever it is that they want to do. So it really sort of helps our soldiers get back up on their feet. The GI Bill is still around, and a lot of vets even still pay for college when they get out of whatever branch of the military they're in, and they use that money to pay to put themselves through school. So other than this new what we're going to see in the 1950s will be an economic boom. We're going to be sort of that is going to get kicked off by the GI Bill. We'll see money going into a lot of different things, and it'll sort of boost the economy back up. And then a whole new consumer economy is going to be born. The United States is going to have is going to be the largest consumer country in the world, and overall the standard of living in the United States is going to be much higher than the rest of the world. And when you've created an environment like that that's sort of stable, economically speaking, people feel comfortable bringing children into that. So we will be seeing the baby boom. So the baby boom was from 1945 to 1960. So all the children born from 45 to 60, those are baby boomers, and that's 50 million babies from the United States. 1957 is the peak of the baby boom. And at that time, a child was born in the United States every 7 seconds, which is just insane to think about. It's a lot of babies. So Harry Truman, we've already talked about a little bit, right? He's one of the things he's most known for is his decision to drop the bomb. I guess I should say bombs on Japan at the end of the war. But there's some things to recognize him for here at home. When Truman became president, he immediately desegregated our military with an executive order. So that's really going to give a sort of like a stepping stone for what's about to happen with the civil rights movement, which we'll cover later on. He runs for re-election in 1948 against Thomas Dewey, the Republican candidate, and it really looked like he was going to lose. People weren't necessarily unhappy with Truman. They just felt very either people were happy or they just were very neutral. I mean, people were unhappy or they were very neutral. So it really looked like he was going to lose until the very, very end. And there's this famous photograph here of the Chicago Daily Tribune, which had actually published their paper too early saying that Dewey was going to win, but it ended up not being true. Very similar to what happened in the 2016 election. So Truman's domestic policy is known as the Fair Deal. I'm sure it sounds like the Square Deal and the New Deal, and it is meant to. So The Fair Deal is essentially meant to strengthen the New Deal. So it's more government programs and government intervention. So most of these programs, however, are going to be defeated by the Republican Congress. So people don't really see a lot of progress in Truman's administration. And then on top of that, people were very unhappy about Korea. So that by the time he got to 1952, the next election year, he just decided not to run. It was very clear that he wasn't going to be reelected. So he chooses not to run. And then the Republican candidate, Dwight D. Eisenhower, is elected that year. So we've talked about the effects of the car previously when we talked about Henry Ford in Unit 3, and we saw some immediate effects then. But now we've had enough time to see those long-term effects really set in and play out, and that's what we'll be talking about now. So thanks to the car, suburbs were becoming more popular, and as families began to grow, people are moving out of the city. So the baby boom is sort of helping to spur a rise in suburban development. This guy, William Levitt, though, is going to revolutionize all that with his technique of being able to mass produce homes. We've talked about mass production before, like the Model T and the assembly line. But, sorry, I know y'all hate it when I yawn. So, what we've talked about before with the assembly line, obviously you can't make a house on an assembly line, but William Levitt sets out to find a way to quickly make a lot of houses at one time, and basically what he does is the houses are built in sort of like sections. In a factory, it's sort of like produced in units, and then like a puzzle, it's all put together at the site. So they sort of like stack it up by room almost, so to speak. So it would only take him a few weeks to build a whole row of houses. So he built the first suburban development community in 1957 called Levittown. It was on Long Island in New York, and it became so popular that he built 2 more. So this is really going to take off. We're also going to see more businesses developing that rely on the automobile, like drive-in movies and fast food restaurants, shopping malls, and Congress is going to have to keep up with that. So in 1956, Congress would pass Eisenhower's Interstate Highway Act, and it's going to build 41,000 miles of highway, which is pretty insane. That's a lot of road. Parts of 40 and 85 were built on that. And when you're driving on that road, you see this little blue sign with the 5 stars on it that says Eisenhower Interstate System. It's the biggest public works project ever in the United States. So now we've got roads and new housing development. We are going to start to see people continuously moving to different locations in the country, primarily to the Sun Belt. So if you look at this map of the United States I've got down here, everything in red is what we call the Sun Belt. So the sort of the sunniest, hottest parts of the United States, everything from southern North Carolina across to southern California and south of that is the Sun Belt. So many people are going to be moving to these places that there are actually some pro baseball teams that have to move, like the Dodgers and the Giants have to move to LA and San Francisco in 1958 because so many people are leaving. California alone is going to get 5 million new residents in the 1940s and 50s. The invention of air conditioning made it a lot more possible to tolerate the heat in these places. We're also going to see that impacting our politics, the congressional makeup. Will change due to all of this migration. California is going to get several new seats in the House of Representatives because of how many more citizens they have. They need more representation in Congress. So our economy is also shifting. The job market is changing from manufacturing industry to service industry. You know, before the 1950s, we were a country that made things. You know, we manufactured things in the United States and sold them. But starting in the 50s, we're going to see things more shifting towards a lot more service industry jobs, things like healthcare, law, banking, retail, things like that. We're also going to see the very beginning, the seed planting of the information industry, our first computers. The first one was named ENIAC. It was about 18,000 square feet, which is about half an acre. And as time goes on, we're obviously going to see that information industry grow. Today is a very significant piece of our economy. More entrepreneurs are going to be opening up businesses, and we're going to see a rise in franchises. So a franchise is like a chain, but that individual people can own a piece of. So if you wanted to open up a Subway, you would own that Subway instead of the Subway's corporate office owning it. But you have to like follow a lot of their rules and stuff. So like Holiday Inn, for example, is a franchise. A lot of U.S. businesses are going to go international. Multinational corporations are going to be selling their products all over the world. Coca-Cola is the best example of that. They even drink Coke in North Korea. So they really, they definitely have a very large reach. And labor unions are really going to start to change to reflect the changing aspects of our economy. And we're going to see the combination of the two largest labor organizations in the United States, the American Federation of Labor, the AFL, and the Congress of Industrial Organizations, the CIO. They're going to combine and be called the AFL-CIO. And they're generally going to be backed by Democrats in Congress. The Democratic Party has had a long history of backing labor unions, and we see that very much in the 1950s. So we're also going to see a pretty significant push for education in the United States in the 1950s. The federal government is going to increase funding to public schools. We've already talked about the National Defense Education Act passed in 1958. We talked about that in the last unit, which was $1 billion fund to create more scientists and science teachers and increase the science curriculum. But we're also going to see a new push for higher education, post-secondary education, and by that I mean colleges. And that's really going to kick off with the state of California. They're going to write something called the California Master Plan, which is a plan for higher education in the state of California. It was 3 tiers of education, the bottom being community colleges, the middle being state colleges, and the top being research universities. So the bottom would get the most funding, and the top would get the least amount of public funding. We're also seeing an increase in consumerism in the 1950s, and I mentioned that a moment ago. In the 1950s, the median family income is going to go from $3,319 to $5,417. That's a pretty big jump. So we're going to see our first credit card introduced, because since families have so much more money, the Diners Club card was the first credit card that we really had. We're going to see supermarkets popping up so people can shop all in one place. Television is really catching on. By the end of the 50s, over 90% of homes had a television. There was a congressman who said, "We will stand or fall by the television." Families are staying at home to watch TV instead of go out to like the theater or something. So a lot of popular TV shows are going to be geared towards the whole family. They're reflecting these ideas of conformity and consumerism that we have been seeing in 1950s culture. There are really no important black characters in 1950s television. There's absolutely no divorce, no sex at all. Most married couples were shown to be sleeping in twin beds instead of one bed. No really depiction of real life problems. Mental illness was rarely talked about. Drug addiction and things like that were never spoken about on television in the 1950s, because it's trying to reflect this idea of sort of like what we want everyone to strive to be. And the American family is really going to be impacted heavily by this. The nuclear family, the American family, is going to be stressed as the backbone of the American society. And the nuclear family is mom and dad in the home with the children. So mom and dad together in the home with the children that are biologically there. It's not a blended family where mom and dad had kids from previous marriages, but mom and dad with their own biological children is what a nuclear family is. So TV shows are going to reflect that nuclear family idea. TV shows like Leave It to Beaver, and you see the Cleaver family here on the TV show Leave It to Beaver. That's what that's from. We're also going to see new ideas about childcare. This guy to our right, Dr. Benjamin Spock, not of Star Trek, wrote the book, The Common Sense Book of Baby and Child Care. And basically what he talked about that was the importance of nurturing children. He said you can't spoil children with love. There's no such thing as too much love. So as our baby boomers are getting older, they are also going to be becoming consumers, and that's going to continue to feed the economy. 1990s. So the family is going to be very, very important in terms of every aspect of society as we go forward into the 1950s and 60s.